right. Well, thank you, Kent, again for agreeing to come on the show today. I'm just going to read your quick bio from the website. You're the Chief Operating Officer, which if anybody knows anything about corporation, like everybody, CEOs get all the love, but the COO, that's the real power seat in a corporation. So I know you can't say that, but coming from a business background, the CEO is always the guy that I was afraid of. That I knew he had the real control. I know we won't say that to William, but yeah. So Kent's been a business operator with deep experience and expertise in Bitcoin mining and solar energy. Kent led sales and business development for a publicly traded solar company, managing a team of more than 100 people with 9-figure sales targets. I mean, what a great lead in to come into the Bitcoin community, especially with, I mean, we'll get into kind of what SAS mining is doing, but I mean, there probably couldn't be a better cross section of skill sets of expertise as what's going on as far as the FUD that's coming out against Bitcoin. So, if you don't mind sharing with the viewers, what was your orange pill moment? So you come from a background in solar, background in tech. You're obviously a very sophisticated mind. You went to San Luis Obispo for college. You were telling me off air, SLO, as the cool kids call it. And so, yeah. So how do you go from solar to Bitcoin? I think that most people in mainstream would see those as kind of two diametrically opposed things. How did you get into Bitcoin, and then how did you end up pairing the two?
Well, I think it actually goes back a little bit further. So first of all, pleasure to be here. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today, Brian. I think it goes back a little bit further. So I grew up on a farm, Cranberry Farm on the Oregon coast. And there was something about that, just caring for property, land, like that sort of thing, that just had me focused on ultimately climate change. Like I got a computer engineering degree in college because I was just fascinated by technology and wanted to understand how things work. So it was really my curiosity that's driven most of my career, I would have to say. So that led me into solar. And I wanted to be in solar because at that point, actually, the idea of peak oil was quite a prolific concept. And I just said, I want to be part of transitioning our energy future away from fossil fuels. And at that time, getting into solar, this was 2005, it was considered kind of the lunatic fringe. Even friends and family thought, like, what are you doing with your career? Like jumping into this crazy, like Wild West sort of opportunity. And it doesn't seem like it today. Because solar has kind of become a bit ubiquitous, especially I know you're in the Inland Empire there, right, in Riverside?
Yep.
So
yes,
yeah, a lot of solar in that area. It doesn't seem odd at all to see it on homes anymore, but it was when I started. And I think, I had a moment in my solar career where it just made sense for me to pursue a dream of seeing the world. So I exited stage left, but it was also partly from burnout. And part of that burnout had come just from seeing the inner workings of finance and money and how all that sausage got made, right? And I was just like, God, there's something just not right about that. And then while I was traveling, I came across Bitcoin, and this was circa 2015, and it just grabbed me. And the more I understood about it, the more I wanted to be involved. So I tried my hand at a couple startups here in Portugal. So by this time I'd relocated to Portugal and been starting a life with my partner here, family, marriage, house, the full 9 yards. And I said, hey, I was on the bleeding edge of this other industry as it was nascent. I see the same thing happening with Bitcoin mining. And specifically, I saw the cost curves of solar dropping. And I was like, it's going to be inevitable that Bitcoin mining and solar collide. And I think that collision just hasn't really happened to the degree that I suspect it will. But I think, what crystallized it for me was actually Jeff Booth's book, The Edge, The Price of Tomorrow. Chapter 5, he talks specifically about solar and mining. And I was just like, yeah, this is going to happen. So I heard Will, who's the CEO, speaking on a podcast I knew the host. I asked the host if he'd put us in contact, and one thing's led to another. And now, deep in the throes of it, bear market, a lot of pressure on the mining industry, the full 9 yards, and in some ways, it feels like a very similar tilting at windmills that I experienced when I was in the solar industry in its sort of early years of industrializing.
Okay. So for people that don't know about SAS mining, what is kind of unique about what you guys are doing? I mean, you're kind of, for people that know about SAS mining, everything you're saying is going to make sense as far as your business structure, but can you tell the audience a little bit about what you guys do?
Yeah, so we are taking a customer-oriented approach to Bitcoin mining, and we believe that we've got a different way of doing it. And so specifically, it's Bitcoin mining as a service where the customer is front and centered with an alignment of incentives that we think match what customers are desiring. And what I mean by that is, first of all, we're focused on clean energy, right? Whether that's solar, hydro, methane mitigation, we want to stay focused on carbon neutral or carbon equivalent negative that about if you've been around the Bitcoin mining sector and all this emergent methane mitigation source, which is really exciting. So that's the first way that we're different. The second way we're different is we don't want to take customers' capital up front until we're pretty close to being able to actually deploy that capital into customers' mining, right? So we don't want to have like a 6-month, 12-month sort of lead time between customers paying us and actually seeing the results, which is Bitcoin deposited in their wallet. And then the third way that we're different is we've designed our business model so that we don't make money unless the customer is receiving rewards. And what I mean by that is we're not trying to mark up the rigs to make money there. We're not trying to mark up our service fees for hosting customers. Instead, we're taking a share of the Bitcoin mining rewards as our profit center as a business. And we think that by having this alignment, it keeps us focused on what customers care about, which is uptime for their mining machines.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's so I came into contact with you guys because I saw an ad for you in Bitcoin Magazine's, it was an email blast. And I'm like, this sounds interesting. So read up on you guys and signed up for the, the kind of the pre-sale type of thing. And I mean, I love the concept. And I mess around with like little mini mining rigs, kind of fun, gimmicky type of things. I run a lightning node for my house just so I can, as a Bitcoiner, can understand the technology and stuff like that and kind of, participate in some small way. But I want to mine Bitcoin. I want to participate in this green Bitcoin revolution. And so, but at the same time, I don't have maybe the technical proficiency to maintain my rig. I don't want to run it from my house. I went over to a friend's house that had, this is a few years back, but had 3 or 4 rigs in a spare bedroom. And this is Southern California in the summertime. I mean, he's heating his house. His house was like 92 degrees and he had it exhausted and all this kind of stuff. And it was so loud. I remember thinking, you've completely like given over your life just to this process. And he had a wife and kids, and it wasn't like some single guy. It didn't last for that long. I mean, all that to say. So there's for regular people like me that live in a normal house that I don't have, ability to get cheap energy at my, where I live and that sort of thing. But I want to participate in it, and I want, to mine some Bitcoin. I would love, that's a fun thing. So the fact that you guys are taking over the uptime problems, the energy problems, like how to source this, I mean, I think there's a huge market for that, and it's only going to be growing because it seems, and this is my assessment, I think I would be interested to see if you agree, but I think that people kind of come to Bitcoin in waves, right? They come to Bitcoin and then they buy some on Coinbase, or they buy some on Swan or wherever they go. And then they kind of sit on it, and then they come back maybe a year later and learn more about it. Maybe they went through an altcoin phase, maybe whatever it happens to be. But then you get to that point where people are like, how do I get involved in this mining process? And so people are looking for that. But then you start to learn that, it can be difficult as an end user to do that. Was that always the mission? Did you guys ever just look and say like, hey, we want to build out a mining farm and we're going to operate on clean energy? Or was the vision always from the beginning, to, you know, business to customer, we're going to do this for other people? Like, was that always part of the vision right from the get-go?
Definitely not.
Okay.
So this is kind of the story of the startup, right? So we actually went out to the market. It was right when I joined Sat Mining, January 2021, and we had actually done a bunch of development on 2 sites, and we went out to raise capital to develop those, and we were not successful. But we did raise some capital, and Will had a good think about it. I did too, and he came back to me one day and said, "Hey, our phone lines are ringing right now for people that want low-cost power and mining rigs. Why don't we go do that? Let's go make this market accessible." And we thought about it and said, "Yeah, and we see where the puck is going here with the energy issue. Let's focus on clean energy," which is my background. As well, you know, so we said, let's do it. Let's make this accessible. And the thesis from the beginning when we made that decision was it currently is, or it was before Sat Mining, from our perspective, fairly inaccessible to the average person. Power costs, especially living in California, you really can't mine profitably there. Maybe you could do it if you were in some cold location and you could monetize the heat, but it's very difficult to mine profitably in most retail situations. And the technical expertise. So we saw all these barriers and said, what if we made this accessible? What does that do to the marketplace? And thinking about it, we're like, well, everybody will kind of wants to own a money printer. If we open this up, like basically everybody can own a money printer. We'll take care of it. You know, we have a fee in there we'll earn some Bitcoin mining rewards as well. But what happens to that market? Is it like the rideshare market where Uber came in and made a great customer experience and then the rideshare market opened?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're coming at it. We think that opening up the market is going to lead to great things. And as a Bitcoiner, what I particularly love is it builds this social layer. Because nobody is more vested in Bitcoin than the miners. And so if we can bring more people into mining Bitcoin, we are going to have the most vested class of people out there. And so, you know, I think there's this idea of, you know, there's the red party, the blue party, but I don't think it's going to be long before there's an orange party, a single issue voters out there. And I'd like to think that, you know, making Bitcoin mining accessible is part of that movement.
That's really cool. Yeah, well, and I love your business model, that it's, you don't mark up the machines, you don't, that you guys go out, you source the energy and all that kind of stuff, and then we're just sharing in the rewards. That's a brilliant business model, and it so aligns with the ethos of Bitcoin, because a lot of people say, oh, you're going to make money off of what I'm doing. It's like, no, like I'm only going to get to make that money, that Bitcoin, because of what you guys are doing. Like it's a shared partnership, and I don't have to know you. Like I have the privilege to sit down and talk with the COO right now. Like this is pretty cool, but nobody has to know you on a personal level. Like you can trust in aligned incentives. That's one of the beautiful things about Bitcoin, is like, I don't need to trust the other miners that they're good people and that's why they're securing my Bitcoin. If I'm just a hodler, no, like they're gonna enrich themselves by doing what's in their best interest, and that in turn helps me. And so the fact that you guys took a business model that aligns with the Bitcoin ethos is really cool, and it's really exciting. But something you said there at the end was about the orange party, and that really gets me excited. And that leads into my next question. If I believe that probably someday somebody like you, maybe even precisely you because of your background and what you do at your company, are going to be in front of Congress at some point answering FUD. If you were in front of, say, you know, a senatorial hearing or something like that, and Elizabeth Warren or somebody, a politician, was cracking down on some of the most common FUD, if you could just talk for a minute or 2 minutes and they just didn't interrupt you, what would you say in that elevator pitch to all those people that are cracking down against Bitcoin? For any reason, I feel like yours is probably going to be very much in the energy sector, but if you had 2 minutes to say whatever you wanted to the Senate, to Congress, to the president, what would you say?
Oh man, that is a tough one because I don't think that you can orange pill people in 2 minutes.
Okay.
It's a journey. But here is what I'd say, and I do think that this would probably fall on deaf ears and not be well received. But one of the aha moments for me was to actually just consider Bitcoin as an emergent money like gold, and to consider what it's competing with. Right now, the base, to go to Nick Bhattia's layered money sort of idea, right? The fundamental base of the pyramid right now in the monetary system is the US dollar, which is backed by treasuries, right? The sovereign bonds of the United States. So if we have this emergent money that's coming over here through Bitcoin, what is it competing with? Well, it's competing with this stack right here. So if you think about that competition, what does mining represent? Mining represents the creation of new Bitcoin. And how do new dollars get created in just a competitive open market standpoint right now? Well, it's created by the Federal Reserve and the decisions they make. So basically a board of 12 unelected bureaucrats that sit around a room and make these decisions. Okay, great. So mining creates new Bitcoin. What does it also do? It secures the network. Okay, how do the dollars in the existing system get secured? Well, I'd argue at least a portion of the US military is behind securing the dollars, right? Yeah. So if we're going to make an apples to apples comparison, it's okay, what are we doing over here with the dollar as compared to Bitcoin? And I think that trusting math and code and having the security done through electricity is way more beneficial for humanity than having a group of unelected bureaucrats that fall prey to political pressures, create it, and then get defended by the blood, sweat, and tears of American soldiers. Yeah. So I think that as Americans, we should probably embrace this, especially since which amendment in our Constitution says specifically that we should only be tied to gold and silver. We should never have ceded that authority to print money to a central authority as Americans.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's beautifully said. And I think that what's so cool about that is it really does appeal to everybody. I mean, you're making a good campaign pitch for the Orange Party, right? The Orange Party candidate needs to have that message. And it's strange that, politicians that claim, or anti-war, President Trump, no new wars under President Trump, somebody that says kind of has been anti-war even before he was in political life, that he just doesn't understand that about Bitcoin. That's the sad thing, is that, he was very anti-Bitcoin, and it would be really cool to see politicians like that have taken an war stance or no new war stance, using Bitcoin as their kind of tool to lead into that. So hopefully over time we can help connect the dots for people, and that Orange Party will emerge. So one of the other ways that you and I got to interact, you allowed me, I mean, you're so gracious with your time. When I signed up for SAS Mining, you had reached out to me and we jumped on a conference call and you were just kind of explaining your company and all that kind of stuff. I mean, really cool, that like white glove service that you guys have. And but anyways, I then turned around and reached out to you and I said, hey, I just wrote a book. We released it not too long ago. And you said, oh, that's great. We do a SAS Mining book club here. And so the team goes through different books. And so I sent Bitcoin Evangelism to the team. I think you guys read it on Kindle or something like that. So putting you on the spot. Now, were you part of the book club? Did you read the book? Or
of course, yeah. No,
okay.
we've got a remote only team, and so having a book club and some other events that we do is how we build our culture as an organization. But yeah, I take that as a priority. So we're deeply grateful to you for sponsoring that for a month, and it actually helped to deepen. Some of the members of our team don't come from a Bitcoin focused background, and it really helped to deepen our knowledge base as an organization. And for those few members that didn't have the passion that Will and I did coming into this.
Yeah, you guys were on fire, but you're trying to light those fires under other people. That's the sign of a good leader. Okay, so as far as on your scale, where do you consider yourself on the Bitcoin maxi scale? Are you 1? Are you like a Dogecoiner is a 1? Shiba Inu guy is a 1? Where who would I say is toxic. I always say toxic masculine, toxic maxi on the other side. Where on that scale do you fit within that?
Oh gosh, I think I position myself as the radical middle. So the way that I look at it is that at the end of the day, I'd like to see innovation. So actually, I think the person that I identify most with, that I really like their stance because it's so principled, is Eric Voorhees. The way he looks at things, I think this last cycle has convinced me that it's very unlikely that anything other than Bitcoin is going to make much headway, at least for the foreseeable future. But at the same time, I don't discount or want to undermine people's ability to go experiment with the technology and go develop things, right? And so I've got one part of me that says, hey, we should be fighting and trying to convert the narrative on all these people that are new to the space that get sucked into the shit coins and think that they're going to make millions. On the other side of me, I think that people come into Bitcoin with the fiat mentality, and it's only through loss that people really wind up adopting Bitcoin, because it is a fundamentally different system. If you look, I was listening to a podcast today Jeff Booth just did with Peter McCormack, and Jeff is so eloquent. I really think that he's one of the best speakers for the industry. But one of the things that he pointed out is, if you look at the basis of our system, it is based on theft. And so everything, the entire social system based on that, I mean, I kind of know some of your religious leanings, right? And theft is, no matter where you are in the world, like that's not okay. But we have an entire society that's based on theft through inflation. And so what is the natural outcome of that? Now, if you shift over to living in a Bitcoin reality, it's based on something that's fundamental and true and honest, right? It can't be corrupted because there's nobody in charge of it. And as a result, what does that society look like that's built on it? So people coming from this amoral society or immoral society and trying to adopt Bitcoin, you sort of have to crack their head open on the immovable object of Bitcoin and go through some pain before they fundamentally or finally adopt it in a way that's meaningful. And I don't know too many people that just went straight for Bitcoin and that was it forever. Almost everybody that I know has gone through kind of this painful cycle before getting to Bitcoin. Right. And so I think it's normal. And so that's why for me, like, I mean, I love what Corey does to try to wake people up out there. It's not my shtick, but I think that serves a function that's important. At the same time, I think that other people like Robert Breedlove, his education is really good to help people get why Bitcoin is fundamentally so important. But I think people have to get there on their own, no matter how much we're gonna scream and dance around from the rafters about, hey, this is stupid to spend your money there. People are gonna follow the greed incentive, they're gonna lose, and then it's only after that loss where they come back and see Bitcoin so live that they say, oh, it actually is about this thing over here, at least for the foreseeable future.
Wow, that's so well said. I think going back to the book, some of the feedback I've gotten is, largely the feedback's been really good on the book, thankfully, by the grace of God. But as far as negative feedback, I've got hardcore Bitcoiners, maximalists that said I'm way too soft on altcoins. And I had altcoiners that said, why don't you give any love to altcoins? Like, I thought I was being very gracious to altcoins through the book. And I have altcoiners that said that, man, it was, you didn't give any love to altcoins. So it's pretty funny. I think that's probably a good sweet spot, like you said, the radical middle, where both sides are kind of seeing it a little bit, is not totally in favor of what they're saying. But that I see this as very much like what you're saying. It called the book Bitcoin Evangelism because I see it kind of like the Christian mission field. The Christians is like, okay, there's two type of people, right? For, if you're trying to convert somebody to Christianity, there's somebody that's an atheist that doesn't believe in anything. And then there's somebody that believes in other religions, right? And so I see no coiners as the atheist. I see the altcoiners as the people that believe other religions. And so Christianity's been one of the best institutions at proselytizing. I mean, it's all over the world and it has those two styles, right? And you look through history, history, and there's the toxic maximalism, right? You can maybe say it's kind of like the Crusades, and they kind of spread it by the sword. That might have been the more extreme side of it, but then you have maybe the more milder version of it, that the toxic people that were like the hellfire and brimstone preachers. Like, if you don't convert to God, then you're going to hell. There's people that respond to that. It's not my cup of tea. I was, I'm more like the Billy Graham, hey, God loves you, that and welcome into the fold. That's how I see this. And that's really the style in which the book is written, is so that, the no coiner hopefully can come in and understand it, but hopefully it's a welcoming to the altcoiner, like with open arms, like, hey, come into the fold, because yes, like you said, people go through this process and ultimately truth wins out. And over the longer arc, the low time preference, it seems like Bitcoin just keeps winning people. I was just talking to a friend about this, and I would be interested to see your thoughts on this as well. But I told him, I think altcoins, I see them serving three purposes. As a Bitcoin supremacist or maximalist or whatever, you could say that altcoins have three purposes. One, they broaden the market. So you have kids that will never dive right into Bitcoin. It sounds old. It's not fun. It sounds whatever, but they will jump into an NFT or something like that. And so, yes, it's kind of casting this wide net. It's not them really getting it, but they're getting their toes wet, right? And like we've seen, because of pain of loss and all that kind of stuff, they gravitate, hopefully over time, to truth and to Bitcoin. So I see that as kind of the first purpose. It casts a wide net. The second purpose is I actually see it as part of you could almost call it the decentralization of Bitcoin, which, even though it's not connected to the Bitcoin blockchain by any means, it provides a layer of security for Bitcoin, in the sense that Bitcoin's a hard target. Altcoin chains are very soft targets. And so if you're a hacker, if you're somebody that has bad motives and you want to steal, you're probably not going to go to Bitcoin. You're probably going to go try and 51% attack Solana. You're probably going to go try and rug pull by creating your own project or whatever it happens to be. But because Bitcoin's the strongest guy in the room, the bad guys are going to go pick on all the other weak people, right? And so I think that's kind of like a security feature that altcoins provide to Bitcoin. I mean, it really doesn't pay to try and attack Bitcoin right now, because there's a lot of ways to enrich yourself in the crypto industry. And then the third thing I would say is that it's almost like a research and development arm. The things that are happening, you kind of alluded to this too, so I feel like maybe you might agree with this, but yes, the smart contracts and DeFi and DAOs and maybe all these other kind of like speculatively techie things, they can move fast and break things, spend hundreds of millions of dollars developing things. And then if it works, we layer that on top of Bitcoin. Maybe it's a second, third, fourth layer protocol that's on top of Bitcoin, and there's a DeFi layer for Bitcoin. And so I don't know, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that that's just kind of being too soft on altcoins and allowing, because I think somebody like a Corey from Swan would say something like, nope, you don't mess around with altcoins because you're allowing people to get scammed, and that's dangerous. And I understand that perspective. I think that's a valid perspective. It's actually, it's very rational, but is entertaining that conversation, is that bad? Is that against the Bitcoin ethos, holding that position? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I think that's a tough one. I think that gets to the conflict I personally feel about it. I think at the end of the day, I have to come back to principles, which is, if Bitcoin isn't allowed to thrive in a free market system, then it doesn't work, right? Like, we can't force this down people's throats. They have to freely adopt it. And I think your analogy to different approaches to evangelism from a religious standpoint is the right one. Now, I can see your point about the sandbox that altcoins provide to try feature sets that then can be incorporated. I think that that's true to some degree. I'm not sure about the protection side. If more honeypots just bring more attackers to the space, because would they be there if they knew that there was no point in even trying with Bitcoin? If it were just Bitcoin, what does that do for hackers in general? Probably they run around and go do something different and focus somewhere else. So I don't know about that idea. And then as far as getting people's toes wet, I do think that that works to a degree, although I don't know if it works so much from an NFT standpoint. I feel like if you're touching tokens, you're kind of getting an understanding of blockchain-based technology, and that can bring you into Bitcoin eventually. But I see NFTs as being a fundamentally different, it's like the application layer on blockchains. And I think that it seems to me that those two markets are not very linked between the underlying blockchain and the NFT themselves.
Good point.
So anyway, that's how I look at it. I think that it serves a purpose, if ultimately just to force Bitcoiners to sharpen their swords and get more specific and focused. And, it makes Bitcoin stronger in the long run. What doesn't kill it makes it stronger, is what I see. And it's anti-fragile in that way. Honey Badger just keeps chewing through whatever gets thrown at it,
Honey Badger,
and I don't think that this is any different here, this particular bear market.
Okay, wow, that's great analysis. I appreciate that, and I love talking to people like you in your position, and especially people that have taken the time to read my book, because I Bitcoiners, we're on this journey and we're trying to suss out what is bad. We're trying to reinforce what is good. So man, this has been really edifying for me, and I really appreciate your perspective. So I'm gonna ask you one last question. You've already allowed me to talk and interview you for longer than we were supposed to, so I appreciate that. But what's something that most Bitcoiners, like people that are in Bitcoin, what's something that most Bitcoiners get wrong about Bitcoin mining?
I don't know if it's get wrong so much as don't understand, which is the interplay between price and hash rate. It took me a while to get my head wrapped around it. I think that unless you mine, you don't actually focus too much on hash rate. It's network security, and it goes up, so that as people bring mining rigs online, it goes down as miners unplug or turn their machines off. But I think the relationship between price and mining is not explored enough, because they're not linear. We're seeing it right now, right? I mean, this is a really unique place in the market where we see price dropping. It's been in a downtrend for a while, while hash rate booming. And as a miner, the profit margin for your operation is the relative gap between those two lines. So the more that those two lines separate, which is what happens on bull runs, the more there's profit available for a Bitcoin miner. The more the price drops and hash rate goes up and that relative gap gets squeezed, the more your margin's getting squeezed. It's just that simple. And I think the other thing that's missed as a result of not understanding that dynamic between those two, it's a relationship between the two. But the other thing that's missed is people will do an analysis of the numbers. And like right now, it doesn't look like a great time to start mining. However, if you look historically, at this point in the cycle, during the last two cycles, this is the right time to get started. Why? Because you need to be positioned and mining ahead of the bull run going. If you try to get positioned into mining once the bull run starts, it's almost impossible to find space. Mining rig prices are much higher. By not being able to find much space, that means your power costs are likely higher. So you can mine profitably when you jump in during a bull market, but it's for a relatively short period of time before the bear market comes, and suddenly you bought in at that enthusiastic state of a bull market, and then when reality comes crashing back down, you're underwater and you want to unplug your machine, right? So it's all about kind of getting into the market at the right time and buying blood in the street, which is where we are right now. So actually, I think that if you understand the dynamics of mining, this is a wonderful opportunity. Could we leg down a little bit more? Maybe. But it's understanding both sides of both price and hash rate that I think is really important for mining.
Cool. Well, thank you. That was great. And I think Bitcoiners, if you're watching, understand that you're a true Bitcoiner if you're excited by this time. I mean, if the price being down makes you all of a sudden not believe in Bitcoin anymore, like go back and read up on some Bitcoin, because that's not what this is about. And so this is the perfect time to buy. Yes, it might leg down more. It's the perfect time to start mining. Yes, it might leg down more, but you are positioned ahead of this next run, which, I mean, I'm thinking about going out and putting out a bounty to people on Twitter and just saying like, hey, just give me, for like 10,000 sats, go find tweets from people in the last bull market when people were saying, thank God for the times that I was buying in the bear market, like the wisdom of the bull market of people. Like, I want to be able to find those tweets and kind of aggregate them and put them all together, because we need to have that mentality of like, when it's the bluebird days, the wisdom that we were expounding at that point, we need to be thinking about that and kind of meditating on encouraging. I was at Pacific Bitcoin last week or 2 weeks ago now, and it did not feel like a bear market in there at all. It felt like a bull market because people are excited. It's Bitcoiners. People get it. There's, Lightning developers there. There's miners. There's all sorts of things. So yeah, if somebody, this isn't a paid marketing thing. I mean, I love your company, and I want to give my platform to people that are helping with the decentralization of it, with helping individuals get into mining. So I'm more than happy for you to, give your spiel. How can people get started with SAS mining? Like, where do they go? What's the best way for them to start connecting with you guys?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can find us on Twitter, the SAS mining handle. You can find me at K Halliburton, or Will. I don't remember his handle off the top of my head, but we're kind of the voices out in the marketplace right now. But if you want to get started, actually, we've got our mining facility in Wisconsin. We are working through the people that reserved. Working through the reservation list, and people put down a small deposit, and now we're getting them onboarded right now, collecting payments. But I believe we'll wind up still with a few spaces available. So come jump on board, create an account, buy a mining rig. The water's never been finer, so jump on in. And if you have any questions, DM me, get a hold of me. As Brian said, I try to be very available to let people know. I mean, this is part of, I think that, Bitcoin creates, we can trust that for a monetary medium, but I think it actually moves trust up to the social layer a lot more. So I think it's having trustworthy people out there and building those reputations. We're playing the long game here at SAS Mining. We're not in it for a quick buck. We're looking to partner with our customers and be their advocate out there and make this journey happen, because we know that there's nothing more empowering for a Bitcoiner than mining their own Bitcoin.
That's cool. Awesome, man. And just a little tip for anybody that's looking for a gift idea, whether it's for Christmas or for me, my brother's birthday's in the springtime. And so he read my book, got orange pilled. Now he's asking, how do I mine? He's thinking he can, mine it from his computer or something like that. I said, hey, you can't mine it from your computer. Well, you could, but you're really not going to want to mine it from your computer. Well, I'm going to surprise him for his birthday in March. I'm going to go halvesies with him. I'm going to buy his half of one of your guys' miners, and he's going to get half of the revenue from that. That's going to be his birthday present. So I already have in mind that SAS mining is going to be a part of my brother's gift, and he'll be so excited, because he's just been, once you get orange pilled, you start to think about, you look at this all through a different lens. So I think that is going to be probably one of the coolest gifts he's ever gotten, because he's so pumped on this whole arena. So yeah. But I
love it. Well, thanks for your support, Brian. It's been wonderful talking with you, and get to share the excitement that you feel for Bitcoin. You're right. There's something about getting other Bitcoiners in the same room where it just naturally generates excitement, no matter the market conditions.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you for your time. Very, very appreciative. And I would love to do this again sometime. So you guys have one of the other things I wanted to tell people about, you guys do Twitter Spaces all the time. If you guys want really good content, they have one with Greg Foss coming up. What is it? The 25th. So in a couple of days. I've already set my reminder for that. They have really good people. Dennis Porter was on one. They have some really good content at SAS Mining in their Twitter Spaces. So go check out the SAS Mining Twitter Spaces. And thanks again, Kent. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Brian.